So ever since the end of the last season, where it was revealed that the Dark Voyager has a master, we've all been trying to figure out who the master is, and thanks to dialogue from Jones, we now know it's an old character, meaning we've met them before. So that's ruled it down to just 4 people, and so I'm going to explain the evidence about them being the master, but also the evidence to suggest they're not the master. So the order I talk about them in will be who I think is the least likely to be the master to who I think is the most likely. So with that, let's start with... Now, most people actually think the master is Geno, and see, there is evidence of Geno's return, but not him being the master. Most people say he's the master because of the Dark Harvester's colour scheme, the word perfection on one of the Dark Voyagers posters, and also the numerous amount of Oathbound teasers which Geno previously led before making the Imagined Order and discovering the 0 Point. Now, the gold on Voyager and the Harvester are obviously because of the gold cube, and black is because of the original Dark Voyager skin. Then the word perfection doesn't immediately mean it's Geno, and while yes, we all know Geno is a perfectionist, he isn't the only one in the Omniverse. What stops anyone from saying it's someone like Doctor Doom or something? And as for the Oathbound teasers, I feel like that is teasing Geno's return, but just not as the Dark Voyagers master. Also, some other things I want to point out about Geno not being the master is, I'm fairly certain the Last Reality don't like him, and Elite Zadie confirmed Dark Voyager is a servant of the Last Reality. And obviously Geno was leader of IO, and they stopped the Last Reality multiple times from destroying the island or the 0 Point. And secondly, in Shattered, the Order is seemingly not involved because the Foundation has asked her to stay behind. And if Geno was the master, surely the Order would have to be there for it, because obviously she, alongside the Imagined, are the daughters of Geno. And if the Order sees Geno alive after what Imagined did in Collision, you can probably expect her to not be very happy to see him. And it's because of that I don't think Geno is the master. But if he is the master, I'm not going to be happy, because 1, it makes no sense for it to be him. 2, Jones, alongside literally everyone else, believes Geno is dead, so he has no reason to think it's him. And 3, well, that will be revealed later in this video. Anyway, let's move on to suspect number 2. Now, you might be wondering, why have I put the leader of the Last Reality as the second least likely to be the master? Well, that's because I don't think the Nothing would want to reveal himself this early on in Phase 2. However, I do believe the Dark Voyager is getting orders from the Nothing, but he's just not the one speaking to the Nothing. And let me explain. I believe the Dark Voyager's master is getting orders from the Nothing to give to the Voyager. Or maybe the Voyager's master has a master that's getting orders from the Nothing, and so on and so forth. No matter how many masters there are though, it will always trace back to the Nothing. So basically what I'm saying is, while the Nothing is not the master that Voyager is speaking to, his master is speaking to the Nothing. And if not, well then the Tree of Masters begins. And if you're still lost at this point, well then I'm afraid there's nothing I can do. Anyway, to suspect number 3 we go. Now you might be thinking, how have I put the Cube Queen above the Nothing when she died to water? Well, that's because I don't think she died. I mean, if water is Cube people's weakness, then the Foundation, the Order, and the Visitor should have honestly just challenged Dark Voyager to a water balloon fight. By the way, in the event, if I get the chance, I will throw a water balloon at Dark Voyager. But anyway, as we know, the Cube Queen did come out of the Golden Cube back in Chapter 2, and obviously the Gold Cube is in Dark Voyager's head. So it's because of that I put the Cube Queen higher than the Nothing. However, since she is presumed dead, there's not much else we can say about her, but since she's Queen of the Cubes, it was worth putting her at second most likely to be the Master. Now it's time to talk about who I truly believe the Master is, which is... Yes, I believe Dark Voyagers Master is the Origin, and I do have a few reasons to believe this. Firstly, Dark Voyager says his master desires a well-stocked armory, and as we know, Origin was a tactician and was also the field general for the Seven, so that fits Origin the most. And also, not to state the obvious, but Origin was once the Cube King, and was consumed by the Chrome, which probably reverted him back as the Cube King. And also, another thing which I haven't seen anyone mention this season is, the Origin is the only member of the Seven to have secret dialogue with both the Foundation and the Order, because the Imagined only has secret dialogue with the Order, and then the Visitor does as well, but that's by mistake, because that's meant for Visitor Reality Unknown. So the Origin being the only one to have secret dialogue with both of them is definitely not a coincidence, or at least I hope not. And so I believe it would be a really good twist if Origin is revealed to be the Master, because imagine how everyone would react to it, especially the Foundation and the Order, or I guess just Foundation if the Order is not even in the event at all. Although that all depends on whether the Master will even get revealed in Shattered, which I think he will, but there's still a chance he won't. And another thing, Origin being the Master, in my eyes, is the best way to reintroduce him in the storyline. And I guess maybe by default the Scientist and the Visitor too, rather than having Geno be the Master when there's most definitely a better way to reintroduce him that actually makes sense. And this is also the third reason, by the way, why having Geno as the Master is not a good idea. Lastly, I will be mentioning the Origin being the Master again in my next video, which should be out before the event next week. So that's my theory on the Dark Voyagers Master. Hope you found that some of my ideas made at least some sense, because if not, then this entire video was just pointless. But anyway, that's all for now.